Welcome back to the Daily Dope Show. This is your host, Brando, the Weed Commando. And, you know, um, yeah, there was a debate on Fox 2 News, and I'm just going to set you up really quick. I don't know much about it, but I do know that Healthy and Productive Michigan, I've been tracking them since they launched their campaign to try to defeat the ballot measure we'll call Proposal 1 at this point in Michigan. And their whole premise is, besides the normal fanfare of reefer madness that we get from everybody else, is that if Michigan legalizes weed, everybody will just be sitting back getting stoned, and nobody will be going to work, and production will go down, and it's just going to be a mess. Which, now we know that that's what alcohol is. Because alcohol, you can actually look at the calendar and see all the days of the year that the production was lost. Because the night before, people got too wasted to go to work the next day. And if they did go to work, they weren't very good at doing whatever they was supposed to do. Anywho, so this is the debate. I will say that Healthy and Productive Michigan, the guy that was there representing them, you could tell that his heart wasn't in it. He knew that his talking points that they handed him were garbage and that everybody else was just going to eat him alive. So it's not really much of a debate. I'll have to say that, the legalization side carried the oxygen in the room and all that. So we're going to go ahead and watch this, and I'm going to stop it from time to time to add some commentary, obviously. It's a 20-minute long debate, so we're going to do the old watch it until I stop it and then talk about it. I'll try not to cut in too many times. Here we go. Oh, and one little side note. I don't know who the guy running the debate is. He's not very good at keeping the room under control or moderating in general, but you can tell he's very passionate about the issue. And then the other person, Deborah Young, if you watch my channel for a long time, you'll know that I interviewed her back in 2016 about the ballot initiative, which back then was called My Legalize. And My Legalize was in some court trouble at the time. Well, they were getting screwed over. Whole different ballgame. But here she is on the panel, and let's just let it rip.
Tonight on Let It Rip.
I mean, it's weed. It's nothing wrong with weed. It's okay.
In just over 6 weeks, Michigan voters will head to the polls to decide if smoking marijuana, not just to ease pain, but for any reason, should be legal. Some say it's long overdue, and we'll be seeing green in more ways than one.
It will create a lot of tax revenue, and I'm hesitant to predict how much, but it'll be quite a bit.
But others fear the unintended consequences, along with the ones we already know about.
I think we should say no to drugs, because honestly, that's what it is. It's drugs.
Okay.
On the panel tonight, he's a Republican who spent more than a decade as a state lawmaker in Lansing, rising to the rank of Senate Majority Leader, no longer an elected official. He's still active, now part of the campaign against the legalization of recreational marijuana. Randy Richardville is here. Next to him, a mother, a grandmother, a medical marijuana patient who became an activist 7 years ago, successfully leading the fight to decriminalize pot in 6 Oakland County cities. Now part of the campaign to legalize marijuana in Michigan, Deborah Young is with us. And so is our resident conservative, the Republican state rep from White Lake, Jim Runstead, ready to rumble again, as is the principal attorney and founder of the Cannabis Legal Group. Bart Morris specializes in the law, licensing, and defense of marijuana issues. He's also an official spokesperson for the Coalition to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol. As always, the man who never inhales, the hardest working man in TV, anchor, attorney, Charlie Lang. Randy, let's get straight to you, because if Michigan approves this, we would be the 10th state to legalize marijuana. It's already happened in Colorado and other places across the country. The sky did not fall, the world did not end. What are you so afraid of?
Well, for some people, the sky did fall and the world did end. The increase in in Colorado was 66% in marijuana-related traffic accidents.
All right, I'm just going to stop him right there because I've seen this debate, and Now I'm kind of disappointed that that this debate really turned into one nonstop, I don't know what you want to call it, like tennis match about stone driving. All right, that's where he just started to set the table, and this goes on and on and on. And the thing about it is nobody ever bothers. Well, I guess it does happen eventually, but you just, when this talking point comes up, you just got to beat back at it. You got to say, no, this did not happen. There is no real case studies of this stone driving phenomenon in Colorado or Washington or anywhere else where they demonstrate that there's stone drivers that are causing accidents and killing people on the highway. You can't use that as a talking point if it's not actually happening. And when they bring this up 999 times out of 100, they're talking about the Rocky Mountain the Rocky Mountain area high intensity drug trafficking area report. We all know what that is, the HIDA report. We're sick of talking about it. We're sick of bringing it up because you guys are the ones that always use just that to act like, oh, the sky fell and people are, dying in Colorado because of this legalization shit. Well, it's not true. We know it's not true. We know that the Rocky Mountain and all the other high-intensity drug trafficking area reporters, their whole purpose in life is to keep marijuana illegal. That's it. We already know that. It's no big surprise, so you can't use that talking point. And I just wanted to get that out there because we're going to hear this all day on this, and I might not have to talk very much more.
So some people died. 66%
No, they
increase in 1 year.
Lie.
That's pretty serious, don't you think? And
Fake
by the
news.
way, in Michigan, we have the highest automobile insurance rates in the country.
Now, here's another thing that they go on and on about, is this insurance hike. And there's a whole segment about it later on. And I just want to get out front by saying, why are you blaming the legalization of marijuana if there is a spike? Michigan does have the highest insurance rates for driving. We should already be doing something about that. But unfortunately, we can't, because Michigan has the most corrupt government in the country. And you know this, dude. You know that the reason why our insurance rates are what it is because the insurance companies own Lansing. And Lansing don't give a shit about the people. We know that. We've seen every proof that you could possibly see of that. So, all right, I just wanted to get that out there because that's the biggest two talking points that this guy has.
An average of $2,600 per person. That's what you pay just to drive on the streets. In other states, the other 9 states, increase averages 16% more.
And again, this is the insurance companies doing this. We need to go to them. And we have AAA, who is one of these people that hiked rates on people because of marijuana for one reason or another, or the whole state legalized. And they also put out a report talking about how marijuana doesn't really significantly affect your driving. So, I mean, it's like, and people are doing things on assumptions like, oh, yeah, you're going to legalize marijuana? We need to raise the car insurance rates. What? I mean, you can't just make assumptions like that. You have to actually see cost increases for you to justify raising rates. So we need to go after the insurance companies, and idiots like this need to be on our side when it comes to that, not pretend like legalizing marijuana is why the rates are going to go up.
$400 or $500 that you're going to have to pay in addition to what you pay already. But Nevada increased by 40%, Colorado 33%. So if you think you're paying a lot now.
And another thing about that is, who knows if why those rates went up in Nevada and Colorado. He's saying that there's some kind of correlation, causation thing going on with that. We'd have to ask the insurance companies, and I know that they're not going to say, oh, it's because marijuana was legalized. They can't say that. They have to show where costs actually went up. And what you'll find probably is that through some kind of legislative voodoo, they're able to charge higher rates. That's just what's going on, man. They're trying to do it in every state. They want to be charging everybody high rates like they charge Michigan. And I don't know if you could really raise them too much higher in Michigan. Every time they even inch towards that, they get fired off by the people. And, you know, this threatens legislators for re-elections and stuff. So it's gotten to that point already in Michigan where we're not going to put up with that shit. So this guy's just full of shit, blowing smoke up your ass. And what is it when somebody talks about some side issue that they think is going to be affected because of one issue or another? It's called bullshit, but it's also like, you know, like, I don't know, like fear-based propaganda, but there's really more to it. It's just like he's trying to make you make your decision based on economics because he knows everybody out there is hurting, especially in Michigan. Oh, can you really afford higher insurance rates on your auto insurance? You might want to vote no in November. That's the stupidest fucking ploy I've ever heard of. And that's the level that they're at over at Healthy and Productive Michigan. That's how lame you guys are, is to act like you can really persuade voters. And maybe they're talking to people that won't even, you know, didn't even think about whether they were going to vote yes or no, or they were probably a yes vote, but they don't really care either way. I mean, come on.
Just wait till
Deborah,
this
you're
goes
a
through.
mother, a grandmother. Aren't you concerned when you hear these numbers?
I'm concerned about my African-American son being arrested for cannabis. I'm concerned about my grandson. Do you know that African-Americans are arrested 10 times more often than Caucasian Americans? And yet the marijuana use is the same for both groups. This is what concerns me. I want to see nobody go to jail. I don't want to see these young people's lives ruined over a plant.
Then when we look at the marijuana issue, I don't know where we stand. The state legislature had a chance to get into this and actually create a law, but the people will decide. Where does it stand? I have one poll, Target Insight, that tells me this proposal is headed for failure. But another poll tells me it's going to win big. How do you see it?
I see it happening and unfolding as people become more aware of the details. There'll be less and less support.
That's just not true.
This is like 20 pages. There's a little synopsis that you get to read. They're not going to get the total details of this.
Okay, now also while this is going on, and now right to his talking point first, so yes, you can go look this up, and I'm sure they're going to talk about that, but basically what they tell you on, and I've seen it, it's like 100 words, the actual thing that's going to be on the ballot. That tells you basically what you need to know. I mean, beyond what's there, and believe me, the people that are the campaign, they didn't want to put it out there like, hey, legalize weed, we're going to make it great for everyone. You know, it wasn't some kind of big, you know, when you hear their careful and measured approach to how they worded it, when you look at the careful and measured approach at the people in the campaign of how they talk to people in public about this, they're tiptoeing on a minefield because Michigan is really a conservative state. I'm just going to put that out there. People have thought this was a blue state for a long time. The proof is in the pudding, all right? We voted for Trump. We got Republicans from top to bottom. And if you go driving around, you see a lot of evidence that this is a conservative state. So, I don't know. You know, you got to be careful how you word these things. And furthermore, they were very careful as to what's in the proposal. I've read the proposal. I've done several videos about the proposal. I've had Colin McDougall from the campaign, interviewed him twice about specific questions that people have asked me about the proposal. And to be honest, man, the regulation package in this proposal isn't a whole lot different than what you're looking at with the Michigan legislator written and approved medical marijuana facilities licensing regulations. They're basically almost the same. So for this guy to act like the regulations are some kind of shit that people are going to read and they're going to be like, oh, hell no. And you know, what he's talking about is stupid shit, like how many ounces you're allowed to possess and stupid little arbitrary things like that, that nobody cares about.
bill package. It is much more draconian in terms of the way it is drafted than other.
No, what's draconian is arresting people under marijuana laws that were written back in the like 1937 or 1970. That's what draconian literally means. I don't know where they find these people. Oh yeah, I was going to mention down at the bottom you'll notice that people have tweeted in to the show, and 100% of these tweets at the bottom is people talking about legalizing. You will not find anybody down there that is against the proposal.
Other states, the taxes is the lowest per this proposal, yet the amount that you can have and possess is among the highest in the nation.
Nobody cares about that. And by the way, the Let It Rip hashtag, in case you didn't notice at the beginning, this segment, it's like a show Fox 2 News does. It's a regularly scheduled show. I don't know when it comes on and all that stuff. Sorry, I didn't do my research on that. But it's just a show on Fox 2, local news in Detroit. And it's called Let It Rip. I don't know exactly what they do, but this is specifically about this debate here.
You can have marijuana 1,000 feet from a school.
That's all right. He just said one of the things in the proposal is that you can have marijuana 1,000 feet from a school. I don't even think that's true. I think they tried to make it so it's closer or something. I'm not sure. It doesn't even matter, because that 1,000 feet from a school shit, that's a fucking federal law. And anybody that makes marijuana laws for states, they always include that, because it's against, like, the federal law has this drug-free school zone. And you got to be, you know, outside of that to be cool with the feds not kicking your door in, because it's almost like being on federal property. Not quite, but almost.
It could be a couple of blocks in the inner city that you could be selling marijuana. The marijuana entries for substance abuse have increased 24% among children.
That ain't true.
Adolescent children. So
that's just not true, man. That's just straight up false. And if there is some kind of increase in adolescents being arrested for marijuana, that's just absurd. That's just like the cops are getting desperate. They don't know what else to do, so they're just going to start arresting kids now. I mean, talk about your low-hanging fruit, dude. Like, I mean, can't we just do like this thing where if the kid gets caught smoking weed somewhere, then they take the parents, have a little sit down? Wouldn't that be better? Why do we got to bring the fucking cops in? That's what this guy wants. He wants to keep the cops in. He wants those big juvenile facilities in Oakland County and Wayne County. He loves that. He loves having a prison industrial complex for kids. And, you know, like a straight up, you go from school to prison pipeline. That's what he wants.
It is going to be, I think, devastating for children. You could get THC with no limits, lollipops that they sell in Colorado.
No. And nope. The lollipops do have limits, and they have limits in Colorado as well.
They're very popular with the kids.
Very popular with the kids. No, this I don't even know where he's getting all this propaganda from. But the lollipops are not very popular with the kids. When he says the kids, what is he even talking about? This is one of those kind of dudes that would just be like the kids, and he's talking about people who are like 32 years old. I guess. I don't know. I don't know who you're talking about with the kids, dude, but the kids aren't even allowed to have those suckers.
So I think when the voters start finding out more, and I can go on and on.
Yeah, you could go on and on. You're just pulling shit out of your ass, so you could probably do this all day. I could too.
We've got plenty of time to digest this, but I think when they find out about this particular proposal, I think the support is going to evaporate.
I have to jump in about the children here, about children having access to. This is going to limit access to children. This is going to eliminate the black market. This is where children buy things like this. If we regulate this and a child has to go into a provisioning center or a store to buy this, they're going to have to show ID. They're going to have to prove they're 21. There are very strict rules involved in this. Children are not going to get ahead of this.
There are no rules involved
There are
in this.
very strict
rules
rules involved.
have not been promulgated yet, and there are no penalties listed.
And this is just going to be another conversation that you have with your...
So, it just occurred to me as I was reading the thing at the bottom, is that this is Huel Perkins over on the left, the guy that's running the show. And if you know anything about Canatonic number 4, it's like a high CBD strain in Michigan. And one of the prized cuts of it. Apparently, it was named after Heel Perkins. Just a little side note.
Child, like you talk to alcohol,
No
you
way.
talk
Why do you-
tobacco, you
how
talk
many
sex.
adults
This is
use
another-
gummy bears?
Wait.
Many adults use gummy bears as an alcohol. I do because I have glaucoma and
Why do you make them look like children's candy?
I don't make them. That's the way
Whoever does.
Before we get
Lollipops,
before
ice
we get
cream.
into
Give me a
smoking
break.
or ingesting, let's.
A lot of this debate is people just trying to talk to somebody, and it's like they crosstalk. Like, they'll be like, Deborah will be talking to the dude from the campaign, and the two cops will be talking to each other. Not cops, but the cop will be talking to the other reporter. It's a little bit hard to watch.
Talk about the
The
legal
Department
issues
of Licensing and
involved.
Regulatory Affairs has made specific regulations
Absolutely.
to preclude the use of any type of candy or any type of thing
Absolutely.
that looks like candy or that's attractive to those that are under the age of 17.
But Bart,
However,
And the
there
packaging
are-
has changed
here's
too.
what we know about young people.
All right, there's finally something at the bottom that looks like reefer madness. Why do we need more people driving high and causing more injuries and deaths? That's like almost the exact word-for-word talking point that the dude from Healthy and Productive Michigan has. So it's probably, they're definitely watching. I can imagine that they're probably trying to get a tweet in here and there. So that's probably what that was.
We have seen cases, in fact, they're debating one right now in Washington, of young people underage drinking alcohol because it is legal. Now, will we see then an increase in young people?
Don't, look, young people don't drink alcohol because it's legal. That's not even true. It's not legal for young people under 21 to drink alcohol. So you're saying they have better access to it because it's legal? I would have to say that that's probably not true. I mean, really, if you think about it, if somebody at a certain age that's not allowed to do something because you have to be a certain age wants to do that thing, they're gonna figure out a way, man. I guess. But okay, but that doesn't mean we don't have to mandate things and make rules and laws and stuff. I agree with that too, I guess, to a certain degree. But like I said before, when are we gonna stop bringing, to the point where we're like, okay, let's bring the cops in and let's scare the kids. Oh, let's just put the kids in jail. Like, for what? This is all victimless crimes.
Getting involved in smoking or ingesting marijuana if it becomes legal under this proposal.
Young people are going to use cannabis or alcohol. What's important is that if we regulate it, then there'll be less young people using it, and the cannabis that they find is not going to be in the black market. The black market will be significantly lessened if there's regulated marijuana. So that's exactly what needs to happen for less young people to use it.
Legislature could have done this. They could have regulated this. They could have set the rules right now.
But they didn't. And I did stories about that when they had a chance. And they even had people in the legislature telling them, like, yo, guys, don't complain when they fucking vote this into law and you can't touch it. So I wish they would quit talking about the legislator could have done this, or maybe the legislator. Now you're going to hear this other guy talk about how he feels like maybe the legislator still should, but it's too late for him to, and there's nothing they can do once this passes, except for with supermajorities. So, the fact that, like I keep reporting on, every time the legislator passes or writes marijuana legislation, it's to give it to their buddies, period. There is no provision in there whatsoever to allow small business, whereas with this proposal, there's a chance for small business players to still exist. Albeit, probably not as small of players as people would like to see in some regards, I guess. I don't know. I don't have any problem with it yet until I see how Laura is going to handle the regulation of the micro business, because I got my doubts that it's going to be, it's still going to be some kind of way they're going to gatekeep it to keep the old caregivers out of the new system. I know they want to try to do that, and maybe it's not the intentions of anybody in the campaign. But between Laura and the legislator and the shady people trying to make their millions off of medical marijuana they still have this window where nobody will be able to get a license in the recreational marijuana until November of 2019. So that gives the medical marijuana people like that much more time to try to make their money. Can't wait to see how it all plays out. One thing's for sure is this dude over here from Healthy and Productive Michigan's not really getting very good points across.
Here's the problem that I see. I don't want to see people going into court on pot violations because they had a gummy bear or something like that. That's not right. We really have to make sure that this is legal, that is regulated. You got to be 21. And you know what? If you're high driving a car, you should go to jail.
Exactly.
It's as simple as that.
We all agree on that.
Nobody is saying otherwise. By the way, I would think that there are a lot of people underage smoking pot right now. We know that there are. So let's regulate it. Let's put some sensible rules here, and I don't think
I think there's two issues that you have to look at. There's been a 24% increase in hospitalizations of youth in Colorado since the law passed. So it is impacting youth. And the idea that the cartels have left, the black market has left, is completely false. Just before I came here, I watched an NBC show that I was advised to watch, and it went through how the cartels have moved into suburban areas. They rent a home. They get people that they traffic in to operate the home, and the police have a hard time going after these because there's so much legalized marijuana that they go and trash the place. They go in and arrest these people.
Well, the thing about that is that's a high-risk venture, and if people are doing that, it's on a scale that, you know, you don't have any idea what you're talking about. Like, I'm sure it's probably more lucrative billionaire type moves than some drug cartel from Mexico trying to do it. And even if it is some drug cartel from Mexico trying to do it, guys, that's not a very smart idea. That's the only thing that they're looking for in Colorado is those kind of illegal grows. Are you kidding me? Like, there's so many states that they're not even looking for any grows. So, you know, I don't really believe this talking point, to be honest. He said he's seen a show on NBC. Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it, and even when I see it, I might still not believe it. And if it is something that happened, it's not on a huge scale. We've seen the Chinese thing where they had 70 grow houses or whatever. We don't even know if they were trying to do a legal venture or not. And I mean, these are people that are buying serious real estate. It just seems a little weird that they would just try to do an illegal grow for whatever reason.
They've been cartelled in, and so they get 3 times more selling that marijuana to other states. So the black market is still there.
Now, that's okay. So that diversion thing that everybody keeps bringing up, once in a while, you'll hear them talk about it. What is the solution for that? Michigan shouldn't legalize weed because we're going to end up creating a bunch of black market weed that's going to go to Ohio and Pennsylvania and shit. Or we just get rid of prohibition federally and have all these states come up with their own regulations and get it over with. I don't know what the fucking problem is here.
Colorado, where this is being sold, that's what I watched just tonight.
Talking about this issue. Some people say this is an issue regarding freedom, but others say that this really is all about money. Who's going to make money? And we're not talking about cartels making money. There are people in Michigan ready now to make millions on the legalization of marijuana. Who's going to make that money, and where's it coming from? Where's it going?
And guess what? Guess who's not going to stop that? Republican guy or police guy or whoever this dude from Healthy and Productive Michigan is. He looks like he's from one of those rehab places or some pharmacist. I don't know.
That's not what's most important. What's most important is that there's 20,000 arrests every year for marijuana non-violent related offenses. That's ridiculous. We can get rid of all of those arrests, and our resources for police can go to important things. So everybody's going to make money on all types of different issues, right?
So how do you determine when you're pulled over on the side of a road whether you have THC in your system or not, whether you're stoned or not, whether you have a tolerance for it or not?
Because they're driving, if they're driving under influence. Yes, they do.
All right, like, I'm not going to say anything more about the stone driving thing because y'all know how I feel about it, but there is going to be somebody that comes on the panel that just basically stops this guy in in his stone driving tracks.
No, they don't.
They get trained. They get trained.
Trained officers can tell if somebody is impaired.
Somebody is
Absolutely.
intoxicated. They can make
Impaired driving is impaired driving.
Of course there's a penalty. It's a misdemeanor. People go to jail for that. People shouldn't be going to jail for being in possession of small amounts of marijuana because they're not hurting anybody.
But when they're driving their car around stoned,
they should go to jail.
Then they should go to jail. We don't advocate marijuana for children. We don't advocate impaired driving.
Number one state in the country is Colorado.
Wait a minute.
Number one for recreational marijuana use is Colorado. What is also number one in the country is children using marijuana in Colorado.
Absolutely not
You think
true.
those two things aren't correlated?
Actually, they aren't correlated because no study shows that. In fact, there was just a study that came out that showed that the opposite about Colorado legalization and the youth use. So there's no correlation because everywhere that's legalized marijuana, from Amsterdam to Portugal to America, states like Colorado, Washington, any of the other states that have legalized, Washington, D.C., there have been studies that track the data, and every one of them have came to the same conclusion that either marijuana has had zero effect on teen use, or whatever you want to call it, or has actually had the opposite effect of what you're trying to say. And if you don't believe it, just go look at studies, because that's all they're saying. Oh yeah, unless you're looking at the only study that don't say that, which is the Rocky Mountain high-intensity drug testing.
Marijuana usage in children in Colorado has stayed stable since they legalized it. Has not changed.
How about the fact?
It's about 15%
How about the fact that there's been a significant reduction in hospitalizations, opiate deaths, opiate hospitalizations?
You're talking about medical marijuana. You're talking about medical marijuana.
No, I'm talking about recreational marijuana. In Colorado and Washington, there's been significant decreases in the opiate epidemic. That's gonna happen here because people that are using cannabis, there's gonna be less use of alcohol and less use of illicit opiate drugs and prescription medication.
The key issue here is that this is a 20-page proposal. The people are going to get some little slice that they get to read. They have no idea the devil in the details of this particular ballot proposal. Once they start digesting this and finding out the impact it will have on children.
See, here he goes again. This Republican has like this Republican mindset talking point list, and none of this shit. Everything he says has been addressed thoroughly in the campaign, in the actual ballot proposal itself. Sure, you can see it in the little 100-word, thing that's going to actually be on the ballot, but there's also more language in the proposal itself that just constantly talks about, what happens if you're underage. So you're just full of shit, dude. And then all his other talking points, just total garbage.
Cartels are actually more empowered under this bill than they are in
total
this
garbage.
state currently.
It's
not fake news. I've got all
What is
fake
so
news.
devilish in that 20 pages? Like, what don't you agree with?
Deborah just said you're fake news. I love that. Good job, Deborah.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing that's hidden. You can go on Regulate Michigan.
The lowest taxes in the nation.
Plus 6%.
With the highest possession.
Plus 6%, so it's actually 16%, not 10%.
If the legislature, or if we took a real slow, methodical look at this and see what actually would be supported by the people they were educated on, there could be...
You didn't do that. You didn't do that with the medical marijuana. You let that sit there and rot for 8-9 years, and then you hammered out legislation that heavily favored big business and your cronies. So don't give me this bullshit about how you want to sit around and slow roll it and talk to people and talk to the people and see what, which regulations they want and which ones they don't want. What are you talking about? Piecemealing the whole package? No way, dude. You had your chance, legislator. This guy's a state legislator. He's one of the people that had their chance. And, of course, mostly Republicans, and most of them were the religious type. They're like, no, we're not even going nowhere near legalizing marijuana. You fucking kidding? We're not putting our name on that. We're Republicans. We're conservatives. We're evangelicals. Or we're the Tea Party or whatever. There's none of them are for putting their name on they legalize marijuana. Maybe a couple of libertarians over in the corner, but I don't really see them as holding a whole lot of power in Lansing.
something reasonable. This is absolutely unreasonable. The people are going to
we have to close out this segment, but if this proposal passes, you may have the choice. You'll need a supermajority, but you may have the choice to change some of
an opportunity you didn't
down the line.
I don't think that's going to happen.
This is the will of the people.
Oriented initiative.
Stay with us.
It's a special interest group. What's the big deal if somebody that's an adult and responsible wants to smoke recreational marijuana? Doesn't bother me. Well, how about your auto insurance rates, which are highest in the country right now? And they skyrocketed after this was legalized in Colorado. They will skyrocket here.
This is like the most ridiculous fear tactic. Again, I mean, I don't even want to comment on it. It's just like absurd. Is anybody out there really going to not vote? They're going to vote no on this because, oh, it's going to raise my insurance rates. You know what you should do if you care so much about that, buddy? Why don't you put together a proposal to fucking stick it to the insurance company so they can't rake us over the coals?
It's not in the fine print. That could be one of the biggest unintended consequences of legalized weed, a big increase in our car insurance rates. Welcome back to Rip. We're now joined by a former police officer who's been on both sides of the issue. Steve Miller spent 25 years protecting and serving the people of Kenton, now a private investigator. You've already met Deborah, Bart, and Randy. Randy, let's get back to this issue of insurance. You say that once this proposal, if it passes, is legalizes weed, our insurance rates are going to go sky high.
They already are sky high. And if you're going to criticize the legislature for not taking something up, I would talk about the 2 Senate bills that the Senate sent over to the House that are still sitting there. Those need to be addressed. However,
we get to see.
However, $2,600 per driver will go up significantly if this passes. And the reason for it is because the roads will be less safe. Somebody with common sense explain to me how more stoned drivers on the road make it safer for our people to learn how to drive.
Yeah, why the drivers on the road?
Because that's what they said in Washington, where it happened, that 1 in 10 drivers that were involved in marijuana type accidents changed to 1 in 5. It doubled the amount of marijuana.
I don't think those are correct.
That's not even doubling. Those numbers don't make any sense. And you know, you're talking about people that got some kind of a test after they got in a car wreck and marijuana came up on it. That isn't no good. So you absolutely have no idea what you're talking about. There is no such thing as stone driving. People that are too stoned to drive don't fucking drive. I don't know how clear I can be about that. But yeah, this guy's about to get his, like, whole game reset. But you can tell that Healthy and Productive Michigan sent him in here with this insurance bullshit talking point, or that's like something that he champions himself. I don't know, but I was wondering where their talking points were. I thought this weed was going to make everybody lazy and Michigan wasn't going to get any work done and we're going to lose money, and where's all that at? I mean, go to the Facebook page. Their Facebook page is just loaded with just complete dog shit propaganda, reefer madness, just everything that's been tried so many times for the last 80 plus years. And, you know, quite frankly, we're about sick of it. Actually, reefer madness has been around for about 100 years, man. It was in the teens when states started trying to do prohibition of marijuana, and Michigan was one of the early ones themselves. And it wasn't just the Hearst papers that ran the reefer madness. It was basically something that journalists played around with in the early part of the 19th or 20th century, before reefer madness even got its big, you know, famous movie. So.
But here's what's regardless,
it's the Washington Highway Department.
The insurance companies are still going to raise the rates, even if the numbers are. Stephen, let me talk to you. We heard earlier that police officers don't have the tools they need to recognize stoned drivers. Was that true when you were on the force?
That is not true. That's not true at all. In fact, when I was a new officer, it was big when the PBTs were coming on. So the older officers used to make fun of us younger officers for having to use a PBT to determine if somebody was impaired by, the portable breath test. They would, you know, they'd laugh at us and say, if you can't tell that he's drunk without using that PBT, you shouldn't be arresting him.
Well, how do you tell when somebody's high?
Because you go through training, standardized field sobriety test training, drug recognition experts training, and officers are trained to spot somebody who might be impaired by whatever substance or alcohol and do it. We send these police officers out to go enforce the law, and we train them to identify impaired drivers to make our roads safe. And that's what we rely on. We don't need a special tool. We don't need to have an amount, that nanometer of THC in their blood to figure out whether they're impaired or not. A good officer on the street can tell if somebody's impaired by a substance and their ability to drive a car was impaired.
How did the prosecutors
By the officer's testimony, sir.
So why did the prosecutors come up and why did all law enforcement across the state come up and say...
What do you know about law enforcement?
Quite a bit. I was at a press conference earlier this week that all across the state, prosecutors and law enforcement came out against this because they said it's not enforceable.
I did a story about that, by the way. I did a clip about when all the cops came to town and talked about all the horrible things that are going to happen if we legalize marijuana. So sure, I'm sure you were at that meeting there, buddy, because that's what that meeting was. It was a bunch of people just like you that are prohibitionists, that hate marijuana, that have special interests pushing your buttons or not, or just the evangelical, they were there too. So, that doesn't mean nothing though. Just because you guys got your little bubble together real nice and tight so you can bounce some ideas around, outside of that, your ideas don't fly. Nobody wants to hear them. They're just old and stale. You have no science to back up any of your claims. They're just fear-mongering, fear-based propaganda tactics that's been used pretty much forever to keep marijuana illegal. What else you got?
I don't know.
It's not enforceable. So
how long has it been since you've been an officer?
5 years.
Okay.
And I spent 25 years doing it.
And 5 years on the force.
So there's different ways to check if somebody's impaired by driving.
There are 200 organizations that came out yesterday and said we are against Proposal 1. 200 of them.
And I did a study done by AAA
that said
which
the exact same
says
thing.
that marijuana does not significantly impair or affect somebody's ability to drive. There was a similar study done in Canada that proved the same thing.
And you think the average person out there is believing this?
Well,
yeah.
that's the question.
There's studies by...
You're a better driver because you're high?
No, I didn't say you're a better driver.
Yeah, he didn't say you're a better driver when you're high, but sometimes you can be. It just depends on, there's a lot of variables, Being high doesn't mean you're a worse driver, that you're actually spacing out. Like, you got this caricature of what being high is what this guy's going by. And the funny thing is, I think everybody on this panel smokes weed currently. It isn't even a matter of like they did smoke weed at one time so they know. No, they smoke weed on the daily. And they're looking at this guy like he's completely like just complete idiot. But anyway.
But you just said you're not impaired.
Significantly
I also want to get back to this. In your 25 years, you had to arrest a lot of people for drunk driving and impaired driving.
Absolutely.
And in doing so, in putting these people in jail...
All right, down at the bottom, Randy is telling the truth. Randy's the guy from Healthy and Productive Michigan there in the middle. Of course, that's the Healthy and Productive Michigan people down there chiming in.
For impaired driving, do you feel justice was served? When you put somebody who you knew was impaired by whatever substance, do you feel that justice was served? Do you feel that putting people in jail for marijuana use serves justice?
Not for marijuana use, no.
Now how would that be different than alcohol then? How is it, if you're willing to put somebody in jail for using alcohol, why not marijuana?
It's the difference between using and impaired. You're talking about impaired.
Okay. Now, if somebody's smoking marijuana and it has impaired their ability to drive, and the officer can determine that their driving was impaired and that this person is impaired, yes, they should go to jail.
Yeah.
It sounds like
we all agree.
Everybody agrees with that.
We all agree.
It's the people that have small amounts of pot in their system, on their person. Now, nobody's, if you're driving a car and you're high and stoned, everybody agrees you have to go to jail. But it's just the person walking there that wants to go and invite someone over and have some pot in the house. There shouldn't be any problem with that. Don't get into a car.
You ever been around somebody that smoked pot for the first time? and then went for a drive, it's not a good thing.
We're not advocating that. Nobody wants to see
What is the
that.
limit that you're talking about?
Somebody shouldn't
you
be
smoke
driving
one
under
joint or
influence.
share one with somebody you've never smoked before.
Well, if
You
you're
drink
two
college.
beers, you're impaired.
go
So
drive
you
and
shouldn't
don't
drink.
That same thing happens with alcohol.
Exactly.
The same thing happens
2
with
beers,
somebody
you're
who drinks
impaired.
for the first time and drives. The same thing happens with alcohol. You know?
So why would we say here's a problem? Let's have another problem too.
Well, first of all, dude, people already smoke weed in Michigan, all right? Do you think that there's some kind of like big rush of people that are gonna all of a sudden just start smoking weed? Or like he keeps pushing this idea that people that smoke weed for the first time, like there's gonna be 1 billion of those, and that they're gonna want to drive right after they fucking smoke their first joint? I know I probably wouldn't have tried to drive after I smoked my first joint. I mean, the first few times you smoke weed, your body's got to get used to. I think I've talked about this before. It changes the way your brain functions. It makes your brain function the right way, not this way that's all like programmed and, you know, has a function to react to things in a certain way. You know, it takes a minute for your brain to adjust to the way it's supposed to function. And during that time, driving might sound a little bit scarier than something you want to do. And that's probably why most people that first smoke weed don't try to fucking drive.
Because we're adults and we're living in America, and
why are more people dying and there are more accidents?
People are not dying. You are giving false
How do you suggest that we eliminate all of these senseless arrests? Like African Americans are being arrested at disproportionately high levels. What do you suggest that we do about that?
We can talk about decriminalization for sure.
Now, did you hear that? I just want to make sure everybody heard what this guy just said. This is the Healthy and Productive Michigan guy, and he's going to say he's going to agree to decriminalization. Not that there's some kind of option to be like, you know what, we'll take this off the ballot so we don't have to worry about it, and we'll talk to you specifically about this whole idea of decriminalization so we don't get all these black kids getting arrested for weed all the time. That's not something. All right, so I don't know why this guy's capitulating, but it's kind of interesting that he is. Watch, check it. Like, pay attention to the two people in the middle.
How do you suggest that we eliminate all of these senseless arrests? Like African Americans are being arrested at disproportionately high levels. What do you suggest that we do about that?
We can talk about decriminalization for sure. But the problem is...
So decriminalization is okay?
Yeah, that part, yeah. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, well you have the problem with the regulation and the taxation.
A lot of the details. The taxation's a part of it. It's the lowest tax rate in the country.
Yeah, that keeps it off the black market.
10%. If you're buying off the black market today, and you say you can buy this, or you can increase this,
not 10%, 16%.
Why would the black market
keep
go
the
away?
taxes low to keep things away from the black market, to close off the black market.
Terrible arguments about black market and taxes and all that.
Marijuana, where you have 30,000 people growing it today legally, they're not legally distributing it. Law enforcement has told me anywhere from 80 to 90% of those that are growing today are not caregivers. They're not giving it to people who have a legitimate need for medical marijuana.
All right, first of all, the problem you're talking about is not exactly like, okay, what he's saying is that people get caregiver cards, and if you get caregiver card and you have 5 patients that you're growing for, then you're allowed to grow 72 plants, which isn't very much. And they count everything down to the clone as a plant. So, you know, that's not very much. And even if somebody did grow just all that just to distribute it and not actually give any to their patients, then they probably would have got caught doing that. Especially if they were buying fancy toys and a big house and shit. So this is crazy fallacy that he's talking about. And he said 80 to 90% of caregivers, which is about 30,000 people, like he said. He's talking about 30,000-ish people. Come on, dude. No way is what you're saying is even remotely true. Now, we do have a problem in Michigan that I've been bitching about since 2008 when the law passed. I voted yes for it, but I was mad about what I seen. They were talking about you could grow 12 plants, but you're only allowed to have 2.5 ounces. And that is true for every patient you have too, which is just insane. You'd have to grow the worst plants ever to get 2.5 ounces off of 12 plants. And, you know, they've been making precedences and arrests and making it even more stringent and tight so that it's 12 plants and it's 2.5 ounces, but you might get in trouble if you have stuff drying on the rack. So, you know, who knows what this guy's talking about, but the legislator had a chance to do this thing for the caregivers and allow them to take their overage to market, because obviously caregivers that are doing it right are going to have a lot of overage. And if they could just take that to market, then we wouldn't have this problem with the, you know, caregivers having too much weed, maybe selling it on the down low. Anyway, back to the panel. Let's hear what the panel has to say about this.
I think that's wrong, too, because I know a lot of caregivers, and they don't break the law.
Let's expand it now.
So let's put the hammer down on these people and arrest everybody for a plant that is not dangerous.
It's not dangerous.
Yeah,
Everybody, black people are arrested disproportionately.
If you grow up as a young black man, today you have a 1 in 3 chance of getting locked up, as opposed to a 1 in 17 chance if you're white. And that is in large part due to the war on drugs, which is a huge part of the war on drugs.
I like Steve Miller. He's a good guy. Stand-up guy.
This has to do with this issue. Because it is still illegal under federal law, even if it does pass in Michigan. And that could be problematic. So if Congress passes the law making it legal, then I think banks will be able to finance people who want to get into the business, and actually more money and more financing could probably provide better regulation and more legitimate distribution.
Now, I think he's talking about the federal Congress when he said that, because the banksters aren't going to want to do more banking with marijuana businesses just because the Congress in Michigan decided to legalize it. I don't think anybody else is going to bring that talking point back up, but they might.
Because right now, the only people that are going to make money are the people that have money right now. So it's going to be controlled by a small group of people. Lawyers will probably make the most money, which is fine.
What was that little exchange? So when he said that, you have these 3 guys. This guy is a lawyer, the guy from the campaign. And then I don't know if this guy's a lawyer, the guy from the Healthy and Productive Michigan. Not sure if he's a lawyer or not. But he just said something that I've been saying about the medical marijuana program as to why we don't have a whole lot of activist lawyers in Michigan that are activists, as in help people out of marijuana charges with, you know, because a lot of times when people get busted, they lose everything right on the spot. And they don't got money for lawyer fees. And believe me, lawyer fees for a marijuana case in Michigan, whew, you don't even want to know. But let's see this exchange one more time.
Right now, so it's going to be controlled by a small group of people. Lawyers will probably make the most money, which is fine.
Yeah, he's pointing to those 2 guys like, you guys will make the most money, and they're laughing about it like they already know. But hopefully they're talking about with helping people get licensed and, I don't know, like guiding their way through that system and the tax system and stuff. Because we don't want to see any more reason why anybody has to go grab a lawyer because they got busted for some marijuana after this law passes. Most of the reason why the activists have been fighting my whole life personally in Michigan to legalize marijuana is to get rid of the whole idea that we can get arrested for this shit. It's insane. Why would you arrest somebody? And like my man on the end, the cop guy said, is you want to put someone in a cage for something that's not dangerous. There's no harm. There's no dangers involved with marijuana. And the Healthy and Productive Michigan guy couldn't even come up with a reply to that.
I'm okay with that. But I think we're talking about it in Michigan, and I'm okay with this, but I do think at some point Congress has to do it.
And that's a great point, Charlie. What I think Congress might want to do is say, we're not going to regulate it. The federal government is going to wash their hands of it. Let's make it a states' right thing. Let Michigan decide, let Ohio decide, let's let them do.
Okay, now all of a sudden, the Healthy and Productive Michigan guy, who if you go to their Facebook page is just vehemently anti-legalization across the board. They're not, like he said, he's not against decriminalization. They don't seem to push back too much on talking points like that, so I'm not really sure where they stand on that, but that's kind of amazing to see in a debate where he's supposed to be on the side of, no, we don't want this to go through. All of a sudden now he's like, oh yeah, the federal government should just wash their hands of it and let the states decide.
Well, you have to walk. But it's important to know this is not a citizens' initiative. This is not a whole lot of people say, oh, the legislature didn't do anything.
What is it?
We have to do it.
And what is it?
It's a special interest group.
Wrong. I'm not a special interest. I've been working on this for years.
That are going out to make more money at the expense
of people just like me who got together.
Take a risk on whether the
Now, I have gone over the proposal, and I don't think it's as much of a, big business money machine like this guy's talking about. And certainly it doesn't appear, at least from my perspective, and I've been looking into this and, knowing what the hell is going on behind the scenes of the campaign for a long time. There's no big special interest behind any of this, man. They don't even really have money right now. They haven't really done fundraising that I know of. And it doesn't even look like they care about running commercials, but whatever.
Explain the risk.
It is the people who...
Right now, what's the risk and the danger?
Did you hear him? Let's go back. This cop at the end here talking about no risks, no dangers.
Like me, not together.
Take a risk on whether the highway... Explain the risk.
It is the people who...
Right now, what's the risk and the danger?
I did.
Explain it right now.
I'll slow down.
Because there is no danger.
Well, look, we're running out of time. We're going to hear from the people who will actually decide this issue. We've heard from the experts. Now we want to hear from you.
Good job, Steve Miller. And, he couldn't come up with the risks or dangers. I mean, he probably would have reverted back to his whole stone driving diatribe bullshit, but whatever.
Charlie takes the show on the road.
On the ballot in November, there'll be an issue of whether marijuana should be legal. Good idea?
Yes.
No.
I'm not sure if I believe in recreational use.
I don't look at marijuana as too much of a harsh drug.
You're going to see an increase in auto accidents.
Those people who get into car accidents will probably be prone to car accidents anyway.
There could be car accidents, that type of thing.
People do that with alcohol. I mean, that's why you have to have limits.
I think that it'll bring tax dollars that the state government will be able to use to help better the roads.
It'll bring in income, but that'll give the legislature more room to steal money from the coffers.
Some people say if marijuana is legal...
My old neighborhood over there in Wayne State, off of Cass Avenue. Now, the people on the street, I don't know, I haven't lived in Detroit in a long time, but when I lived in that neighborhood back in the early 2000s, it was pretty much like, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't have found anybody that was against the proposal.
The state's going to make all kinds of money. Do you believe that?
It's possible.
Do you invest in some marijuana businesses now?
Not personally. I don't necessarily have those dollars to invest. But if I could, I would.
Invest, but use no.
If it makes you feel better and you do it within the law, why not? We work hard. We deserve to go ahead and enjoy ourselves.
Thank you.
Final thoughts, 10 seconds for everyone, beginning with Steve.
I hope everybody votes yes on Proposal 1. It's good. It's good for the state. Going to bring in good tax dollars. We're going to take away marijuana arrests, not ruin young people's lives coming up for merely trying marijuana.
Let's legalize marijuana, protect the kids, take it out of the black market, tax money for our schools and our roads. Everybody vote yes on Proposal 1.
I personally wouldn't have a problem with people that want to recreationally smoke marijuana in a free state like we live in. However, like Jim said earlier in the show, the devil is in the details. Children will have much better access. The workplace will be less safe. The roads will be less safe. And auto insurance rates will go up. And there will be people dying.
Okay. Whoa. Slow down. Pump the brakes. All right. One thing he did say about the kids having access or something like that, I think at some point, I don't know if I deleted it. Like, it might have been one of the times when everybody was talking over each other. But at some point, somebody addressed that. They were like, this is just one more conversation you'll have to have with your kids. And I keep hearing that talking point come up and whatever. And I mean, it should have already been, I think, because you should have already been like, hey, you know, here's my conversation with my kids. The government lied to you about marijuana, but, you know, you can still get arrested for it. Have a real good conversation about the real truths. You know, that's what, I don't know what it's like to be a parent, but is it that hard to just tell the truth to your kids? I mean, come on, man. They wanted you just to put all the drugs in a box and be like, hey, these are all bad and they can all kill you and you can go to jail and blah, blah, blah. But that's just, you know, that's why I don't trust the government. That's why I don't trust adults when I was younger. It's why I don't trust a lot of authoritarian figures, because that's what they did, is they lied about stuff like that. Because you know, they knew that they weren't allowed to do it. And I guess that's why they wanted to make it seem like it was the worst thing on the planet.
This is not a good proposal, but I would be more than happy to work with the legislature or anybody that wanted to come up with a good proposal.
Right. We have to vote yes on Proposal 1. Having regulated facilities in our state is going to decrease the black market significantly, which is going to eliminate all of these senseless arrests, and it's going to be good for our economy, and it'll be good for Michigan.
Charlie? I'm not sure the public really knows what's in this proposal. I'd like to see some details. I think there should be an advertising campaign. Ballots go out, absentees go out. I think it's next week. You better get going. If it's going to pass, you guys that want it passed, you better start advertising now. Not happening.
I don't know how this is going to end. I have no opinion, but I do know that the stock market thinks it's a great investment. Stock till rate is up more than 200% in 1 month. I thank you for your opinions, and I thank you for watching this edition. Let it rip.
Well, that's it. I guess I don't really have much else to say on this. Just that, you know, I don't, just on the last tip, like he said, you know, you guys need to start getting out there and get those commercials out there. Really? I don't really see the point. And I think Michigan has like a long-standing activism community. You know, we had John Sinclair get arrested on the steps of Lansing in the Capitol building back in 1970, I think it was, with 2 joints, and they gave him 10 years. Maybe it was in 68. I don't really, whatever the case is, ever since then, we've had an activist community in Michigan. We've been very informed about the facts of prohibition, the facts of hemp. We know what marijuana is. We know what cannabis is. We're not stupid. So, I mean, that's it. That's really all. These people that are anti-marijuana, even if they go out and try to put commercials out, they're just going to look like idiots, because people know facts about marijuana in Michigan. And the fact is there's almost zero chance that this thing doesn't pass. That's a fact. And whether or not they advertise, it doesn't really matter. But again, I'm going to recommend and endorse voting yes for the proposal because basically of the decriminalization aspect of it. At one point, the dude was like, yeah, man, there isn't even penalties in there. Well, there is penalties in there, just not the ones you want. You know, just because the penalties don't say misdemeanor and felony on them doesn't mean there's no penalties in there. There is penalties. There is consequences for going around the law. I don't always agree with that, but I definitely don't agree with the 20,000 arrests a year that we have in Michigan for marijuana. And this number has gone up, like, pretty good. It's gone up a pretty good tick since before we legalized medical marijuana. That doesn't make sense. So that's what I got for this debate. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.